Warning: the following podcast contains violent scenes that may be unsettling to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to the Brian Diaries, where my pals and I get together and talk about subjects dealing with our favorite tabletop role-playing setting, the World of Darkness. While we may not be subject matter experts on the game lines, we have a passion that has led us to create and share actual plays with you all. Eventually we thought, well shit, we might as well take a stab at a podcast, and here you go. Each episode we will have a guest content creator to join us to talk about whatever subject is on the table. If you would like to contact us, you can reach out to us on Twitter at twin_cities_VTM or on Facebook at Twin Cities by Night. So here we go. I hope you enjoy.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Diaries. In today's edition, we will be discussing the benefits of injecting cold brew directly into your eyes. Chris has done extensive experimentation in this area, and we are now proud to present the results. Thoughts, Andrew?
Disgusting.
But effective, and also a great laxative, apparently.
Yeah, and if you haven't guessed by our introduction here, we're not actually joined by Chris. There was a fatal accident involving said injections into the eyes. R.I.P. Chris.
Don't worry, we plan on raising him from the dead very shortly. We just need to all catch our flights.
Yeah, you think
wherever.
death will stop the cold brew machine? No, sir.
With a large enough cold brew enema and the effective use of resuscitation paddles, we will have Chris upright in no time.
Don't you guys worry.
We are horrible people.
So, with that out of the way, yes, welcome to the Brian Diaries. Today, we're going to be kind of going over some meta-plot discussion, events within the World of Darkness that you can incorporate into your chronicle or just straight up ignore if you don't like. So, the meta-plot is something that has there's a lot of opinions about it out there. Everyone has one. And some people love it, some people hate it. This particular topic will be about the schism that occurred between the clan Assamite. This is a particular contentious subject in the community of the World of Darkness, don't you think?
Oh, definitely. I think anything coming from the time of Thin Blood and the lead up to Gehenna has been pretty contentious. Everyone has their own interpretations. Some people just hate the idea of it entirely and want to go back to second ed, where it was still this far-off possibility.
Whereas others fully embrace the idea and move forward. It's definitely something that has been used in every version of the game since its introduction, to some degree. Even in V20, where it was like, oh, we're taking an agnostic approach to the meta plot and not really integrating it. Well, Beckett's Jihad Diary has an entire chapter dedicated to discussing the Assamite Schism and has one of my favorite exchanges in the fiction I've seen in the books so far.
Oh, which change is that?
Exchange. There's
exchange.
Exchange. Yeah. There's a discussion in which the Assamites that are leaving the main clan and joining up with the Camarilla. It's a meeting where they're first introducing the idea to the leaders of the Camarilla and why. And there's this little spat that occurs between one of the Tremere and one of the Assamites, in which the Assamite puts the Tremere in his place regarding blood magic.
Yes, I remember reading that. It was very well done, and it was a lovely middle finger to the Tremere representative. And of course, I say that with, the Tremere being one of the more enjoyable clans for me to play.
Oh yeah, they're bastards. It's so much fun to play as one or to have them as antagonists. Tremere are awesome. But we're not here about the Tremere. We're here about the Assamites. And some of you who are not familiar may have guessed already what the Assamite Schism is by the name and what we've already said about it. And that is a split between different factions of this clan of vampires. Why don't you delve a little bit into that?
Well, as far as the in-world history of the Assamite Schism goes, at some point around the Knights of Prophecy, which is this vague late 90s, early 2000s period, an Assamite Methuselah named Urshulgi awoke in Alamut, which is the Assamite home fortress. And he was a Path of Blood hardliner who effectively worshipped Hakim as if he were a god. Well, Urshulgi decided that he didn't like Islam or any of the other religions being practiced by members of the Assamite clan, and he began to do a very thorough purge. He started with the head of the warrior caste, and started to work his way downward from there.
Jamal just straight up refused to announce his faith and was killed.
Bam, just like that. Because it's Urshulgi and he can do that. I think his description in Children of the Night is that he doesn't so much as move from place to place by walking as he just sort of flickers from place to place. He is that powerful.
Yeah, he is a pretty potent individual, as you can expect from fourth generation Methuselah's embraced in ancient antiquity.
Yeah, he dates back to the Baali War, which is actually a fun apocryphal little bit that didn't make it into the clan books or into print, really, anywhere. Mm-hmm. But we can get to that in a bit. Anyway, so Urshulgi's resurgence causes his child, Al-Ashrad, to go, whoa, what the fuck? And Al-Ashrad eventually leads a exodus of the sorcerer caste, along with a few sympathetic viziers and warriors, into the Camarilla. When Urshulgi woke up, this also had a pretty devastating effect on the Sabbat, in particular the Black Hand, as they were basically waiting for someone to throw off the Tremere curse, which Urshulgi did with minimal effort, and they jumped ship from the Sabbat and went right back to the clan and were like, yep, we are ready to murder everyone, just tell us what to do.
Yeah, a good portion of them were already on like the path of Cain or on the path of blood, and with the curse removed, which, interesting note on that thing, if Urshulgi did it with relative ease, and that passage I had mentioned where they put them in place regarding blood magic and how the armor had he gave a very descriptive explanation on what he thought went into the curse itself and how it was probably done. It leads me to believe that they probably could have lifted this curse a long time ago, but it served their interests to leave it in place.
Quite possibly.
It's a very good balancing point to hold against the warriors of the clan, so that the sorcerers had some sort of leverage over them.
Yep, and I can definitely see Al-Ashrad doing that. Also as a way to, minimize the murderous tendencies that got them into trouble in the first place.
Absolutely.
Back during the Anarch Revolt. So, crippling the Black Hand, which, depending on which version of the game you look at, has either recovered or has not recovered. I know that By Night Studios has their story. I know that V5 has their story. But we're not
One takes a more extreme leaning than the other.
Yeah, I'm not too up on the V5 version. I like the rule set to some extent, but I'm not too happy with all of the canon changes.
Let's say this much. In V5, they have officially joined the Camarilla.
Okay. Well, that doesn't bother me. The schismatics certainly were heading that way anyways, even in Revised. And they make a good fit. I mean, the sorcerers and the viziers do make a good fit in the Camarilla. Warriors, not so much. But most of the anti-tribute were warriors, so they went where they were probably better suited, that being the Sabbat. Now that we've gone over the history a little bit, what do you particularly like about the Schism or don't like about the Schism, Andrew?
One of my favorite things about the Schism between the different factions there is the multitude of story opportunities that it presents to you, because it's one of those things where it has so many different interesting potential stories that you can tell surrounding this one thing alone. It is so versatile it's such a simple idea, just we don't agree with this ancient and we want to join this other faction, but it creates so much tension and drama between different characters and potentially between the whole factions, possibly putting them at war with one another. It just creates an opportunity for you as a player or storyteller to just go ham. That's my favorite thing about it, is that you can just do so much with this one idea.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a hell of a family feud, no doubt. It also opens up all sorts of questions. As you previously mentioned, why was Urshulgi able to get rid of the Tremere curse with a hand wave, whereas Al-Ashrad, who is strong enough to resist Urshulgi, couldn't manage it in almost 1,000 years, or 500 years or so.
Yeah, a guy whose write-up includes him having multiple bound demons in his service.
And who, was able to stand toe-to-toe with an antediluvian before his embrace, from what I understand, if I remember correctly, as a mage. Because Al-Ashrad was a mage.
Yeah, this is a person who was old, ancient by vampire standards before he even became a vampire.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that I like about the Schism is, not just the internal family conflict, but the impact that it has on the world and around it, and the way that you can use and introduce that into your stories. Like, what does a random Camarilla city do when, all of a sudden there's 10 new Assamites showing up at the door offering friendship in exchange for refuge. What sort of disruption does that have on the local political structure? How do people start trading favors? Are there any old grudges that need to be resolved? Maybe one of the Assamites asking for refuge had a hand in the assassination of an old Primogen, and the Primogen's child is unhappy about this. What have you there?
Or potentially you could have an entire story arc revolved around the integration of these Assamites moving in. You can integrate different ideas around immigration, which is a hot topic.
Absolutely.
If you want to focus on modern politics, even this is something that you can have incorporated into some of these characters. You could show neonates who have more modern ideas of rejecting Islamic beliefs, or you could have these ancients who just don't like the idea of a whole bunch of new vampires moving in into their territory, just kind of creating a lot of conflict within the Camarilla.
Yep, and on the other side of the coin, there's probably a lot of stories that could be told about their sudden absence from the Sabbat. You get a pack, say the Ductus and or the Priest, were Assamite anti-tribute, all of a sudden the rest of the pack wakes up and they're gone. And then they find out that every Assamite in the city that was part of the Sabbat is also gone. So how do they deal with the power vacuum? Do they try to find their comrades? Do they wonder why the hell the vinculum didn't work as well as it should have? Are there any last messages? Any clues as to what happened? Did the Black Hand column that was on some sort of high security, high importance mission suddenly lose half of its manpower because they felt the call from Urshulgi and decided to just say screw it and head off to the Middle East? What does that do to the Sabbat, and where do they go from there?
One of the things that I would probably do myself, were I to have a chronicle featuring this, is look at the metaplot that V5 tries to advance with their whole the calling, where all of these different Sabbat and elders are just called over to the Middle East into these Gehenna Wars, as they're dubbed. And in my mind, my headcanon, it's all Urshulgi. He is the one pulling the strings, manipulating all these others. This is just the beginning of whatever nefarious plans he has in mind.
I can see that.
It does line up rather nicely if you think about it.
It does, and Urshulgi is fanatical enough to want to eradicate as many other vampires as possible, and he could have enough access to enough low generation blood from other clans to establish some sort of ritual that summons everyone to the Middle East.
Absolutely.
It's not like the Assamites haven't been hunting other kindred since, they were created.
Not only that, they've been accepting payment in blood for their services rendered that they have brought back to Alamut. So yes, they definitely have the vitae they need to perform something like this.
Yep.
What else does a ancient, powerful blood magus do whenever he wakes up to vast stores of vitae from vampires all over the world?
Looks like he's got a lot of work ahead of him, and probably a lot of fun as well.
If you were to use this idea in a chronicle, what would be your method?
The idea that Urshulgi is summoning everyone to the Middle East?
Not necessarily that, just the schism in general. How would you integrate it into a story? Would you focus on it directly? Would you pick one specific type of idea from it?
When the Schism originally was published, I was actually running a Sabbat LARP, and there were, I want to say, 4 or 5 Assamite anti-tribute PCs in the game. And I remember discussing it with them whether or not they would have their characters stay with the Sabbat or leave. One of the side plots I ran was the disappearance of an Assamite anti-tribute bishop, who ended up heeding the call and going back to the Middle East, along with the disappearance of one of the higher-ups in the regional Black Hand structure. Because naturally, one of the players in the game was a Black Hand member, after having invested like a year's worth of effort into it. So I did incorporate that, and it wasn't a major focal point for the game as a whole, but it did have an impact on those 5 characters. They ended up staying in the Sabbat because they were all more or less on the path of Cain and were worshiping Cain very diligently. But in a new game, say either on TCBN or even a home game, focusing on that, I would probably want to deal with an all-Assamite game. Get a coterie of Assamites who operate as sort of a cell, maybe have a vizier as the point man for social interaction with whoever wants to hire them for assassinations and the like, or evidence gathering, evidence planting, whatever you want to hire an Assamite for. And then have the schism occur and have the vizier want to go with Al-Ashrad whereas maybe the PCs are all the warriors and or sorcerer, have them sort of decide for themselves what to do and where to go, and make that the central conflict, which character wants to do X, Y, or Z and why, and then maybe see if there's, how they want to respond to the supernatural call of Urshulgi. Is one of them on Path of Blood? Is one of them on Humanity? Is one of them on some sort of Road of Heaven that focuses on Islam, and how that particular character would respond to the call? How would you run it?
I think that's an interesting idea, having an all Assamite focused story where you have these different people trying to reconcile their differences and come to a decision for themselves on what they want to do. And it's a very difficult decision to make, because if you recall, part of Urshulgi's demands is that all of the clan, they renounce any other gods besides Hakim, any reverence to another deity of any kind. And quite a few of the Assamites, well, they're Islamic. And there are some Christian and Jewish followers among them as well.
Yep, you bring in like the Leopards of Zion, the Sisterhood of Aranyes or Aranyes, can't pronounce it properly, who are Greek. The Web of Knives is going to obviously go towards Urshulgi because that's kind of their dig. Their gig is assassination. But I can see the Leopards of Zion saying hell no and joining the schismatics to a man.
If I were to use this myself, I would integrate it as sort of a plot point within the story that adds tension to a city. It would be something where, like I discussed before, with Assamites moving into a new city and just the tension that itself causes, the friction between different characters, even people who want to allow them in and others who don't. A thing that I've always wanted to do is run a story based on my own hometown here in Dallas. And there's a few like canon characters that would make excellent characters in there. One of those being Mirlinda of the Tremere. Her haven is in Dallas. In her whole write-up, there's that little tidbit, that one little line. It's like, that's interesting. And it also mentions how she is one of those who embraces the idea of the Assamites coming to the Camarilla. She's like the one Tremere on their side. What's her mission? What's her goal? Why does she want them there? How would that work whenever she is jockeying against the prince of the area, trying to integrate these Assamites into the social structure for whatever ulterior motive she has? Because let's be real here, no Tremere has any sort of benevolent ideas when it comes to any other vampire.
Yeah, that's actually a really cool idea. Like, make all the PCs either Tremere or Assamite, and they are compelled to work together by their very superiors. I can see that would be a really good idea. I like that. Even if they're not all Tremere and Assamite, just watching the politics, the play out, people trying to broker favors, work out deals.
Mm-hmm. You have these these Assamite coming in, and they are trying to gain domain. They need a place to live, but there's all of these other vampires already here, and they already have their established domains, and there's this prince trying to help get them integrated, but they're stepping on toes everywhere they go, and everyone's upset. They're blaming the prince, they're blaming the Assamites, they're just pointing fingers. It can cause chaos, it can cause all sorts of complications.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Plus, if you have other established independents like followers of Set, who also have a very dim view of the Assamites, what favors might they pull to influence the Camarilla's politics? Or do the Assamites quietly eliminate them on the DL?
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that one. Yeah, there's a lot of story potential there.
Absolutely. Now, what do you not like about the Schism?
There's very little about it that I don't actually like, but there's a few things that stand out to me. One, it kind of some of the writing, the way it is presented, it's not exactly done well, I don't think. There's some of the books where the idea is first presented, it's just kind of it feels kind of out of nowhere and ham-fisted, and the way they write it, just over time they've gotten better. especially like I said with like the Beckett's Jihad Diary, the way they handled it there, and some of the integration of E5. Over time, it's gotten better. They've expanded on it more, and they kind of talked about it in different ways that make it more easily used. But initially, it was just kind of like, well, this is coming out of nowhere, and it seems just, oh yeah, this ancient just woke up out of nowhere and just did this stuff. But the longer I thought about it, the more I was like, that's actually kind of how it would work in the world of vampires, wouldn't it? Just some ancient just wakes up and just fucks everything up for everybody.
That is kind of a major theme in the whole game itself. Some ancient wakes up and suddenly you have Chicago falling to shit. Chicago was, like, the main plot lines in Chicago was an argument between ancients, one of whom was a relatively recent awakening. And because of their polite disagreement, to put it nicely, because of their disagreement, an entire city basically was thrown into chaos. And that's just two ancients with a personal dispute with one another. It's not, someone of Urshulgi's standing with a global dispute with every other kindred who is not an Assamite.
Not just not an Assamite. He'll fully embrace, not capital E, the regular use of embrace. He'll fully embrace anyone who's willing to convert to his way of thinking. If you come and you worship Hakim and you follow his tenets, yes, absolutely, you are welcome. But the fact is that there's so very few who can or are willing to even do that.
So it sounds like what you're kind of alluding to there is that the Assamites are, in a way, becoming another Sabbat, a religious fanatic sect hell-bent on murder and diablerie.
Yeah, they kind of are turned into that. And that's another thing that I dislike about it, is because it turns those who stay behind into just murderous, like you said, murderous diableries. That's really all they are.
It's an all Assamite Sabbat. And
Yeah.
then that, they're going to compete with the Sabbat because instead of wanting to eliminate the antediluvians, they want to worship and lift one in particular up to primacy. So there's going to be a lot of conflict there. And that's actually going to be pretty devastating to the Sabbat itself, because a lot of the Sabbat anti-tribute that returned to the main clan after Urshulgi woke up, they have a considerable amount of information on the Sabbat, a number of the secrets, a number of haven locations, power structure details.
Yeah, they could easily do a lot of damage to them. And when you have this massive group of murder hobos who that's their only driving goal, then, well, guess what's going to happen?
Yeah, so maybe instead of a Sabbat Giovanni war or Sabbat Camarilla war, maybe eventually the Sabbat gets caught up in a war with the Assamites and has to kind of relax on the Camarilla for a little bit because of it.
Yeah, like I said, there's potential for all kinds of stories. Some of the ramifications, however, are things that just leave a sour taste in my mouth, and that's one of them. And what the remaining Assamites become.
Yeah, I agree with you that it was a little bit ham-fisted at first. It wasn't presented as an option. And a lot of the meta plot from the late 90s was very ham-fisted, or if not ham-fisted, but very this is what's happening, period. Not, here's an idea that your game could use, or you could leave it alone. So, the Time of Thin Blood with the Red Star, that was written as an absolute within the game world, and not a lot of people were happy about that. I've had the book referred to as the Time of Thin Plot, because people disliked it that much. So, regarding the Assamite Schism, though, that sort of, like I said, that falls into the ham-fisted as well. One of the other things that I didn't like is that with the way the Schism was presented, it wasn't evenly done. It's not this group of Assamites with this set of beliefs left Alamut. It was the sorcerers left Alamut for the most part. It was dividing up the bloodlines arbitrarily without saying this faction from mixed bloodlines within the clan left.
Yes. And that's another issue that I just have with Vampire the Masquerade as a whole, presenting clans and bloodlines as entire unified factions, with the gangrel all leaving together and other similar things. It never really sat well with me whenever they do something like that, where no, these guys are all members of this.
Yeah. They're like frat bros,
Yeah. It's not one of those things that I really enjoy about the setting. I like having mixture. I like having my anti-tribute and other things that are sprinkled throughout the world.
Well, the Assamites do have the dispossessed, which are kind of like the anarch Assamites. So you combine that, you could use them as sort of a mixed group, dispossessed sorcerers, viziers, and warriors, sort of all together doing their own thing. But I hear you absolutely on having the anti-tribute, having representation of each of the lineages and each of the sects. In some cases, it makes sense, though, that one lineage would be present in only one sect, like the Kiasid in the Sabbat. At least using the original Kiasid, not the Dark Ages 20th edition bullshit Kiasid.
Of course, you would have an issue with them.
Sorry, I hate that book so hard. But I've ranted about that elsewhere. But like the original plot with like Marconius being a Lasombra within the Sabbat doing his thing and then having a very limited number of children, it makes sense. But like with the Assamite anti-tribute, they were all warriors. As if none of the viziers or none of the sorcerers took issue with the curse that was imposed on them and decided to, hey, you know what, I'm going to go over there with these guys and avoid the curse. No, they were all warriors, period. And it's like the Camarilla Assamites are now all sorcerers and viziers, not warriors. It just feels very forced and artificial.
Yeah, so there are some problems with it. Any other things on this subject you want to cover?
That was a good question.
I think I have exhausted the things that I have to say on the subject. So if you have any other things, we can talk about that. Otherwise, we can move on to our break and come back to what we're doing on TCP in the future.
I think now's a good time for a break. I think we've really hammered home most of the big points on the Schism.
Okay, then.
Seeded some story ideas out there, a few that I may end up using myself.
Hello again, folks. I'd like to tell you about the Facebook group we run called White Wolf and Onyx Path RPGs, Gameplay and Media. Have you ever wished you could have an easy way to find gameplay videos and podcasts, or just media in general that deals with your favorite White Wolf role-playing games? Or have you ever wished you could find a forum to share gameplay that you have recorded? One that won't be drowned out by random posts and discussions, so that your media could get the attention you deserve. The group is specifically run with the sole intent of it being a one-stop shop for people to view or share media involving the games we all love. We take thorough steps to ensure the page does not become cluttered and is easy to traverse. The group is already immense and continuing to rapidly grow, with new media being shared every day. Stop on by. We hope to see you there.
Okay, welcome back to the Brian Diaries. Now, let's talk about upcoming projects, things that will be coming out on the channel, what you can expect, and what you're looking forward to. So first off, 13th Age is going to be coming out tomorrow after recording this, and then shortly after that, this will be releasing as well. So those of you hearing this is coming out a week after the 13th Age is being released. I didn't listen to that entire thing yet. I was waiting for the thing to get uploaded. I want to hear the edited version of that one on my drive. So I don't know how it went. Did you participate at all?
I did not participate.
Okay, well, hopefully our guys did something mind-blowing. I'm sure they had a wonderful time.
From the conversation that was posted in the Discord, it looked like they did.
Yeah.
I'm personally looking forward to the next Cthulhu one-shot, in which the player characters go on a nice cruise, and as Craig puts it, nothing bad happens.
Nothing at all.
Of course not. It's just a lovely time at sea.
That's never a bad thing in the Call of Cthulhu universe. Never.
Yeah. Little fishing, some tanning.
Just spend time on the beach drinking rum.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yep. And then next month we'll start recording the Demon the Fallen game again.
Yeah. Yeah, you excited for that?
I am looking forward to that. I want to get rolling on that again. I feel a little rusty due to the hiatus, but that is partially my own fault. So we'll get that back into gear.
Well, the first couple of episodes that come out, those were really engaging. I'm not a fan of Demon. I don't like Demon at all. But I enjoyed listening to the game that you guys played because of the way the characters were able to just kind of like it's very obvious they're alien. They're not human. They are something else that's trying to be human, and it's just so unusual for them. It was good. It was very good.
Yeah, I gotta say everyone's doing a great job with that so far. Now I just gotta get all my notes together so that those alien and interesting characters have something to do besides eat barbecue.
You got to ease into it, the ultimate evil style, you know?
Yes. We'll go from barbecue to heroin addictions in no time, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, on the subject of ultimate evil, we have some more of that coming up. That's going to be, that's Chris never has anything easy for us with that.
I haven't heard the newest session. Unfortunately, I was unable to participate as I was stuck at work that entire weekend.
Well,
but I am looking forward to diving in again.
We have the episodes have gone up, so if you want to on a commute, maybe pop it into your in your car, play it in your playlist, whatever, however you listen to your things. I don't know.
Download it onto my phone via Podbean and hope that it works.
Hope that it works. That's the only time I can get anything to work with Podbean anymore is if I download it. Streaming doesn't work for some reason anymore. Our gripes about Podbean aside,
is because this is interesting things that people listen to the podcast for.
What other projects do we have coming up? I can only think of Ultimate Evil and the one shots that we have coming up.
Yeah, we've got the Savant one shot that is in the early stages of planning.
Yeah. Was there anything else?
I think we're hoping to get an Eclipse Phase Chronicle going, or Eclipse Phase series.
Yeah.
But I think that's far off into the future. But I think that would be a lot of fun. So get on that, Tillman.
Oh, and important thing, the story arc of Corruption wrapped up. That's something that we did recently.
Yes, we did.
That was something else. I didn't expect it to end when it ended, to be honest, even though as a storyteller I kind of made that decision. It was one of those things where kind of had to for narrative purposes. There was more I wanted to go into, but I think that it was better served to turn that into a second story arc that we do at a later date in the future.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to getting back into that. I think there's going to be a lot of fun for all of the PCs to see their changes between the first arc and the second arc.
Yeah.
Without trying to give away too much, I will say that I was very surprised at the survival rate that we had.
Yeah, that was we didn't know how that was going to go. It was down to dice, and well, if you guys want to know, go listen to that. It was it was fun.
Suicidal characters.
It was fun. I enjoyed it. I think that the characters learned some valuable lessons from their experiences.
Undoubtedly. Well, those that survived, at least.
So that's it for our upcoming projects, and I think we're just about done here.
Yeah, I think we've covered everything.
Yeah. So, as Chris always says, drink lots of cold brew. Get out of here. I'm going to talk to my friend.
In memoriam, Chris. In memoriam. We will drink cold brew in your honor, at least until we have finished the enema and resuscitation/resurrection. Take care, folks, and we will be back soon.
High Level Games, the industry's first choice in taking your games to the next level. We are a podcast blog and new media network at highlevelgames.ca. We have blog posts about all of your favorite games going up 5 days a week, and a podcasting network with actual plays and shows that discuss role-playing games, with more rolling out all the time. We are on iTunes, Twitch, and YouTube. Find out more information at highlevelgames.ca, a site that certainly isn't controlled by a shadowy board of directors of otherworldly origin. That's highlevelgames.ca.
Please, help. They're coming.